from my 2 o'clock Fridays. We are moving house and the skip bin just arrived as I was getting ready to jump on. Thanks for joining in. Say hello if you're there. I had a couple of questions this week about lactose intolerance and the inability to digest dairy. So the questions are around where do we get lactose from and what do we need from dairy and where else can we get it from. So bear with me a tick. I'm just live in a couple of places and trying to get used to this. So just bear with me. Cool. So lactose is in all foods. The whole point of the body to eat food is to digest it for energy, protein, and fats. So, and basically get the energy from all of those places. So when we are, oh, hang on, telling more. Okay. When we eat a food that contains lactose, the body's job is to pull the lactose apart into the tiniest molecules to get it into glucose so that it can get back into your bloodstream so then you can go and feed all your cells with glucose. People who can't break down or can't pull the lactose apart, it means that they don't have enough of the enzyme that pulls it apart. So it's like a little helper molecule that comes along and pulls the lactose bits apart and breaks it down in your food. That breaks it down from your food in your stomach. So if you can't break that down, what happens is often the side effect of having milk or sometimes yogurt, cream and ice cream is that you often will get wind, bloating and diarrhea. So this is really, really common after you're following a bout of an infection or a gut infection. So if you've had gastro, often for a couple of weeks afterwards, or even a couple of days, you might find that you're sensitive to milk and dairy foods. It's also common in somebody who has avoided dairy for a really long time. Because if you don't have dairy for a really long time, your body doesn't need to produce the enzyme lactose. So the next time that it's introduced to your body goes, oh, we don't know what to do with this. Quick, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. And then you get that urgency to go to the toilet. So the whole point is that we're not making enough lactase. And usually if you're sensitive to lactase, you will know. I've rarely seen anybody have a reaction that's taken longer than like an hour, 2 hours. So if you say you have a milk drink, or an ice cream or a creamy pasta or something like that, and you've got to go to the toilet within sort of half an hour of eating it, chances are that you are sensitive to lactose. And it could be that your body's not producing the lactase because you've just had a bout of a bug in your tummy. It could be that you have genuine lactose intolerance because you haven't had it for a really, really long time. Oh, sorry everyone. So your body's not breaking it down. And it also could be people who are on specific medications or are going through cancer treatment as well, because that can cause a problem. Or you could have an infection, a systemic infection. What happens if you can't break down lactose is that you get diarrhea, bloating, stomach pains, cramps, excessive wind, and then urgency to go to the toilet for number twos. If you have lactose intolerance, I guess the issue is that from dairy foods, we get a really good source of protein and a really good source of, hi Kelly, really good source of protein and a source of calcium. Calcium's an essential nutrient and it's needed for muscles and bone health. So it's important to make sure that if you are avoiding dairy foods because you're sensitive to lactose, then we need to make sure that you're getting another source of calcium from somewhere else and being careful that you're getting enough protein as well. Generally, we say that if your lactose intolerance is due to having a bug or a gastrointestinal infection, like a gastro, for example, you will generally be able to build yourself back up to having it again after, after a few days, even a week. If you have not had lactose for a really long time, so if you've been following a low FODMAP diet for years and you've just been having lactose-free milk or soy milk or something like that, then chances are you're going to react no matter how much dairy you have. But if you want to start introducing it again, you can bring it back in small amounts. So you can bring in small amounts at a time over a measured period of time and start reintroducing yourself to lactose and dairy what it means is you're just giving yourself a tiny little bit, and then your body goes, oh, we need to start producing that thing that we used to produce to help our body break down that lactose. If you see me looking up and down, it's because I've got Instagram up there and Facebook down here. So the next thing we need to do is, you can, if you know that you want to keep lactose out, and if you're following a low FODMAP diet currently, or if you need to follow a low FODMAP diet for the elimination phase of the diet, for that 4 to 6 weeks period, lactose-free milk actually contains the enzyme that breaks down lactose. So the enzyme has been added to the milk so that your stomach doesn't have to produce it. So that is completely safe for people with lactose intolerance. For people who have a significant lactose intolerance and have had since they were born, there is a small percentage of people that just cannot produce that enzyme to break down lactose. You can get something called Lactase, which is tiny little tablets that you get from the chemist, and you can take them if you say you're going out for ice cream with a friend or something. You can take those just prior to eating the high lactose containing food, and then they will break down the lactose for you. I find this really helpful. So I have some clients who are choosing to do the shakes and meal replacements, but they're also really sensitive to lactose. So they've got food sensitivities or intolerances. So I've found it useful that if we're making a shake, for a short period of time, they have the Lactase before they'd have the shake so that they can get the protein and calcium and nutrients from the shake before we start transitioning over to food. So that is probably one of the only times that I really find it useful. Or in kids with lactose intolerance, and say they're going to a party and there's ice cream cake, and they really want to have it, and you know that you don't want them to miss out. That's the only other time that I really speak about it. But it's handy if you know that you're really sensitive to lactose. It can be handy to keep them just in the cupboard if you think you're going to have lactose containing foods. So foods that have high lactose content are cow's milk, goat's milk, any sort of cow or goat milk based food. So things like smoothies and iced coffees, ice creams, other dairy desserts. So things like cheesecakes, custards, trifles, soft cheeses. So lactose is found in the water content of the milk. So, or the liquidy content of the milk, not the hard contents of the milk. So in that case, cottage cheese, ricotta, camembert, brie, because they're creamy and like a little bit more watery than regular cheese, you're going to see more lactose in that than you are compared to hard cheese like Parmesan or cheddar cheese. Feta is often low lactose though, so it's a bit of a exception to the rule. Other things like creamy based dishes, so things like tuna mornay or quiches if cream has been added, scrambled eggs if they've added cream or milk into scrambled eggs when you've cooked it, quiches, lasagnas with the white sauce on top, cauliflower and white sauce, potato bakes, and then also chocolate. So milk chocolate and white chocolate particularly, because they're made with milk, they have much more lactose than the other, than dark chocolate. The low lactose alternatives are, like I said already, so lactose-free milk or any other milk-based food or milk alternative like soy milk, almond milk, rice milk, oat milk. The one thing that I'm going to say about those is make sure that they are fortified with calcium. So if you are having a lactose-containing food or drink, non-lactose, if you're having a low lactose-containing milk, make sure that it has 100 milligrams per 100 mils of calcium. 100 milligrams of calcium per 100 mils of the milk. That is going to give you about the same calcium content that you would get from regular milk as well. Another, if you're having, it's a like for like comparison. So lactose-free yogurt is a bit of a contentious one. So a lot of people who are sensitive to lactose can actually digest regular Greek yogurt because it's got those cultures in there. And the cultures that live in regular yogurt start to break down the lactose in the yogurt, especially the longer they sit on the shelf. They start to break down the lactose in the yogurt so that your body doesn't have to do it. So often people who have lactose intolerance can still tolerate a lactose containing yogurt as long as it's a good quality, like a Greek style yogurt or natural yogurt that's got the bacterial cultures in there. You can get lactose-free ice creams and custards, so often they're made with that lactase enzyme added in already, or they'll be soy-based or something else. You're not really going to get your calcium content from those foods, so I'm not too worried about the calcium content there. It's more the yogurt and milk that we want to make sure that you're getting, the calcium content from the yogurt and milk. You're not going to get much calcium from ice cream or depending how the custard's made. If it's made with milk, you will. If it's custard from the shelf, pre-made custard in the fridge, you're probably not going to get a lot of calcium from that. And then hard cheeses. So if you know that you are sensitive to lactose, you can still eat hard cheese. There's, like I said, remember lactose is found in the water content of milk. So by the time you condense milk into cheese and let it mature for however long it matures for, you're not actually going to have much lactose left over. There's really, I think it's like 0.1 milligrams of lactose compared to about 5 or 6 milligrams of lactose in a serving of milk. So like I said before, the main thing we want to make sure people are getting is enough calcium. So if not enough calcium, it can lead to issues with bone health, and obviously lead to a condition called osteopenia and then potentially osteoporosis. I see the most common time I see somebody with osteopenia, which is thinning of the bones, is in undiagnosed celiac disease or recently diagnosed celiac disease. It's one of the most common times I see that, and that's because their body hasn't been digesting and absorbing the nutrients that it has needed for a really long time. Making sure that you're getting enough calcium each day. So this is a bit of a controversial one, but having 2 to 3 serves of dairy per day, depending on how old you are and your gender and life stage, can give you an adequate amount of calcium. An example of one serve is 2 slices of cheese, like, the pre-sliced size cheese, a cup of milk, and then 3/4 of a cup of yogurt. So those 3 serves will give you about the right amount of calcium that you need. If you're not having that, then you need to be starting to think about where else you can get calcium from. So non-dairy containing foods that have calcium in them are things like fish. So tinned fish like salmon or sardines. The reason that they have calcium is because you actually eat those soft bones within the sardines and the salmon, and those bones contain a good amount of calcium. So about half a cup of those will give you 1 serve of with some calcium in there. Tofu, as long as it's fortified with calcium. Nuts and seeds like almonds, sesame seeds, tahini paste. Adding these foods to your diet as a regular thing can just help to top you up and keep giving you little bits of calcium throughout your diet. And then other fortified foods like breakfast cereals, breads. I think I've even seen some juices that have added calcium. Green leafy vegetables do have calcium, but you need to have a lot of them to be able to be the substitute. And then baked beans, legumes, kidney beans, cannellini beans, those sorts of foods, they also have a source of calcium as well. They're not really the best source of calcium because they don't have as much you have to eat quite a lot to get the calcium out of them. If you think you're not getting enough calcium from dairy because you're not having lactose, chat to your doctor and ask them whether they think you need to be supplemented or even referred to a dietitian to make sure that you're getting enough nutrients from your diet. Because don't forget, the other thing that you're not getting from you're not getting from dairy foods if you're cutting it out is protein. And our main sources of protein are dairy and meats and meat alternatives in the diet. So that you could be lacking in some area if you are cutting out dairy altogether. I hope that was helpful, and I hope everyone has a good weekend as well. Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bear with me while I turn everything off.